at least want to see that, what does that look like in Jefferson County waters? What are the opportunities there? And then you might think, maybe less pressure to try to locate those. Sorry, I'm fumbling around.
No, I understand.
Well, I think that's where potential small group of folks that we could try and get involved in this that have various expertise could sit down with the county staff and start looking at designation in their aquatic areas, where to find some of this stuff. Not a rush to go and see if truly you don't have any place that is appropriate.
Conversely, look at all of Puget Sound and say, are there areas where it is possible? Maybe that's something the industry should have done for you already, is say, here's the possible places, and then we could whittle away at those, maybe with other things if you wanted to. But at least if you were reassured and said, well, over by King County, there's a whole bunch of spots where it's perfectly okay, you feel less like you could say, well, over here, we need to fight this battle.
I think that's right on. That's why there's a lot of conversation about marine spatial planning, both at the national level and the state level, when it's not there yet.
Yeah.
I know that partnership, they're taking some preliminary steps of really focusing more on aquatic reserves and protected areas, but this is the kind of thing you would do in marine spatial planning, and the reality for us is we're faced with this decision within our existing regulatory framework right now.
And which goes back to the WAC, which basically restates the precautionary principle for the Shoreline Master Program. It says, well, ecological protection comes first for that very reason. We're not there yet.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if I think that's where probably one of the centers of our disagreement. I think, it kind of just comes down to, is the use okay here or not? In the areas that we consider appropriate from a standpoint, is it ecologically okay here or not? And I think, that's, you can look at I think from what we're hearing, a lot of the concerns that you've raised along the way. And there's some concerns that are, I know out there broadly. I think that the agencies address them from our view at least to say, okay, that's a different take on what we're hearing from the center.
So can you sit down with our staff and make it that more concrete and say, well, this is what we're talking about right here in this area, out there, past the ferry, or something here.
I think that would be the goal, is see if there's enough information from what we have now to be able to do that in a way that meets your needs and ours. I think that would be, I would like to try that. Certainly like to try that before telling our director that we're going to start moving.
I think that, David brought up a good point, which is DOE, or can DOE look at the entire region? Or do you feel that you have been told or mandated that every county that has shorefront, has shoreline, must go through this process? I mean, that would be like saying every city in Washington must permit some undesirable activity, even though it may not work in most of them. Every city must I think, Phil is the idea of a nuclear reactor. If you look at the big picture, there may be areas where a nuclear reactor makes sense, but certainly not in every city or every county. And maybe not in every county does it make sense that we have to have on that campus. But perhaps in all of Puget Sound there are some areas. But you guys are getting your work cut out for thinking of all the counties. And some that maybe have very limited shoreline. You guys have got to squeeze one in here somewhere.
Yeah. This is I guess I'd say this is the challenging little dance that we do with local governments. We are charged with representing the state's interests in this and working in partnership with local governments who are trying to express their community interests and trying to make those all work together. What the timing is that this jurisdiction's adopting now, this one already has, this one's not going for 2 years. It's hard to meet these sort of statewide goals with, in that setting.
Yeah, and almost like if you were required to find within each county of the state so many tens of thousands of board feet of Jeffrey pine. And, well, I'm sorry, this one here only has that many, so we're gonna have to just take it all out, sorry. To meet the overall state requirements.
So instead, I think we are left with that, unless the state had a marine fish plan for the region where we already done this work and said, it's totally appropriate here and not appropriate here, and all the counties were supposed to then toe the line to that marine fish plan. Unless we had that, we are where we are, which is, it's bottom up, county driven, the state has this role. And so I think our only choice is to work with each jurisdiction and to make sure that this question is fully and thoughtfully explored. And that you allow it where it's appropriate and you say allow it where it's not. And that's, I realize that's not, it's not the ideal way. I think we can review this. I think it would be better if you step back and make a bigger picture view of it. That's just not.
Let's impose upon you.
So, back to the draft CUP criteria, so understanding the technological challenges of the weather recently, have you had a chance to look at these at all?
We talked about in the car, we'll drive it.
Okay.
Sit in the traffic jam for a while.
It would be helpful if there are any that flagged for you as problematic or ones that are, to give us a heads up on.
Maybe we can go down to see if anybody does. I think the one is just the overarching one of the one we raised before, which is collectively, if you do all this, then you pretty much got to be involved. I think again, it's interesting knowing that these came from other sources, so I want to be careful. It's a lot of ridiculous when it's already in it. But that's one of the ones that I think that jumped out to us in the car is at least maybe wanting a little more clarity around what does habitat associated with threatened species, including native savannas, where does that come from? Is that are all marine waters habitat?
That was shorthand, right, Michelle?
That does come from, well, originally, there's mention, reference to, and I get a listing of habitats of special significance in the 86 guideline. That's then, of course, repeated and reflected in the EIS, where you've got the comparison of the no action alternative, which is essentially, there's all the existing regs in place at the time, including the interim guidelines, but then they also have the preferred alternative, which says, okay, we believe the existing is adequate, and or in some places will say, but really you need to do this in addition. So this is linked back first through the EIS, which then goes back to the interim guidelines regarding locating away from habitats of special significance, and that includes things like kelp and eelgrass and so all those. So this was, again, being a paraphrased version, sort of an approximation thereof.
And what we're thinking,
Yeah.
what we asked for. Make sure that there's clarity.
Right, and I guess I would say that about all these, again, being paraphrased, this is not intended to be final language, just again to kind of capture the basic concepts of what would be represented in more specific provisions.
And I've also heard a question, at least, of justification of the 2 and 1 mile distance from streams. So I've heard that already. What other questions or major flags did you see?
Before we move up to the habitat question, just Michelle, maybe look at the critical saltwater habitat definition in the WAC itself. Like, see how those two mesh together. We already have.
Yeah, because that would post-date in 90 EIS, would it not?
Yeah, it's from 2003, it's from the guidelines, right from the guidelines.
Okay.
do in there in terms of?
Well, some of this is already in the permits that they have right now, like chemical recording, fish field procedure, all that's already in the permits they have. I was questioning if you nautical mile reference to that and where that came from. But number 10, to 3 years in duration. And our permits are 5-year permits, we can call them in any time in the issue. I just wondered also kind of a basis of 3-year in duration. The industry now is starting to, they follow things, they move around. And the studies have shown that when they follow that, they're required to do a closure, if they close again, and it's also allowed to do a report, and the recovery underneath is amazingly quick.
The recovery is what?
Underneath the pen.
Underneath the pens.
But I was just wondering where that 3-year, sometimes some of the specifics, I wondered where the basis was.
And I'd have to go back and double check. My gut is saying, again, it came from the interim guidelines and or the EIS. Those were really the 2 primary documents you're referring to, but
But number
I'm
10
not
was for
positive.
experimental chemical shoreline. So it really was just a concern that if this wasn't tried and true, that they could, at least try to further the technology of pinfish without a perpetual approval if there's something that shows up in that 2 to.
So I guess I wondered what the definition of experimental was.
Yeah, and that would be in the we approved.
That's already good.
Not all of the interim recommended interim guidelines were incorporated into the final EIS. Trying to somewhat kind of change. And then science has changed between those 2 documents and between the final EIS. So, some more strict, some.
We do have terms defined in the SMP that was sent on to you in December 2009. We do have a definition for experimental, and I don't think you've got that document.
And that's okay.
One thing we haven't touched on today, but a people here is number 7. In conversation earlier, you expressed concerns about that.
Yeah, I found interesting that the distinction between private management operations and, say, a sportsman's club